Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Do you wish to wake up one day and hit the Life Reset button? Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine, helps you navigate crucial life areas, heal the past traumas, and cultivate fulfilling relationships and careers. Life Reset is your guide to a profound journey to reshape your life. Grab your copy on Amazon or Audible now and embark on a path to a more joyous and fulfilled life.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a Heartfelt Chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine, psychotherapist and author and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today for what I promise you to be an insightful and amazing discussion. I truly enjoy what we talked about today, and I'm positive you will also. Today, I chat with Dr. Harville Hendrix and Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt. They are both the co-creators of Imago, relationship theory and therapy. In 2015, Harville and Helen also co-founded Safe Conversations. It's a training institute that teaches a relational intervention based on the latest relational sciences that can help anyone shift from conflict to connection. Harville and Helen are co-authors of 3 New York Times bestsellers, including Getting the Love You Want, which has sold more than 4 million copies in addition to multiple other books on relationships. Their books are books that I refer my clients to, that don't see a couple that I don't ask them to read and exercise with their books, and even singles who are looking for relationships that I offer their book to, because I think it's phenomenal, and it really has an amazing step-by-step guide for you how to be in relationship, not only intimate relationship, not only marriages, but in relationship, in relatedness to others. Harville is the recipient of several honors, including Outstanding Pastoral Counselor of the Year Award from the American Baptist Church and the Distinguished Contribution Award from the American Association of Pastoral Counselor. Yes, he does have his Ph.D. in counseling, but also his Ph.D. in psychotherapy and psychology. He is a psychotherapist. And Helen is one of the small army of women who helped seed the women's funding movement. She's an advocate. She is a go-getter. She is a trailblazer. She was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1994 for her contribution to the global women's movement and into the Smithsonian Institute for creating women, moving millions, and her leadership in creative women's philanthropy. Today, we will be talking about their latest book, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything. And they have an amazing guideline, 4-step guideline, and exactly how to talk with anyone about anything. And they share with you their knowledge, their expertise, what brought this way of communicating and the effects of it. You can visit them at harvillandhelen.com or quantumconnections.com and learn more about your trainings and the dialogue training that is going to be a global social movement. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, my YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, or any of my social media platforms. Share your thought with me. I'd love to hear from you. Just connect and let me know what you're interested in. And without further ado, here's Dr. Harville Hendrix and Dr. Helen Hunt.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Dr. Manoukian, three experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
I am so excited and always feel so honored to have the two of you on my show, which I read. It was wonderful, and I'm excited. Everybody, Dr. Harville Hendrix and Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. We are honored to be on your show and to see you again. We always have a lot of fun. So,
and for everybody who's out there, just know that the Imago therapy, which our wonderful guests have co-founded, has been the solid foundation of everything that I've learned about relational therapy. And I'm just, I feel always grateful, a lot of gratitude for the two of you, who you are, the authenticity, transformation you create for all of us as therapists. So just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. That's really honoring.
So tell us about your new book, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything, and what brought the two of you to this type of dialogue within your own relationship and then kind of sharing it with the world.
Oh, well, thank you. I'd love to do that. Shall I start off on that? Mm-hmm. So a little background is that about, I suppose about 10 years ago now, we were embedded in couples therapy, living in New York City, and doing our thing for the preceding 30 years or 30, 40 years. When it dawned on us that the dialogue process, which had become the centerpiece, we call it the engine of Imago couples therapy, that fundamentally it's helping couples learn to talk without polarizing, and to listen without judging, and to connect beyond difference. It's a very clear thing, because we found that the way couples or how couples talk to each other was the most important part of their problem. Their problems usually went away when they learned how to talk without getting into polarizations and criticisms and so forth, or just trying to solve a problem without having a good relationship. So the dialogue process became standard. And then one day I sort of told Helen, I have a professional depression. I'm aware I live with a social activist who has impacted half the planet because of her leadership role in the women's movement. And so
that means I was in Seneca. I was in New York. We lived in New York.
Yeah.
I picked up the phone, and it was the Seneca Falls Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And they said, we're inducting you as the founder of Women's Philanthropy.
Yes.
I was very, very early on. And then and then we moved. I met Harville in Dallas. We moved to New York. Gloria Steinem called me. So but
so
she says I'm a movement builder.
She's a movement builder, and she's and it's not like just an aspiration. She's actually founded Women's Philanthropy, which means to pay the bill for women and girls across the world, and
wanting to have more equality. And women used not to be able to go to college, and before that, they couldn't have a bank account.
So women's equality, women's equality, and we were trying to get equality out for all human beings for hundreds of years, and Helen's a major contributor to that. So I live with her,
and Gloria Steinem says our dialogue work is the next stage of feminism.
Yeah.
Now that women are equal to men, they want relationships. That's the most important thing in their life.
Yes. So live with this social activist, and I'm a therapist. And it dawns on me, she's changing the world. I'm helping a few couples have better marriages. But only 10% of people go to therapy, and only 2% of people go to couples therapy. So if we got everybody healed, we'd make minimal impact on the world, because what we need is to change the system, because the system of how society is organized is what produces the symptoms that make it necessary for people to go to therapy. So anyway, that's sort of the background of saying that one day I got to do something different. So about 10 years ago, we decided we would take, and this is kind of the mechanism, we would take dialogue out of couples therapy, out of Imago therapy, and give it to the whole world, and figure out a way that it could be distributed without it being connected to the complexities of therapy for couples. So because we discovered along the way that everybody who used dialogue, whether it was with parenting or somebody in their company or somebody in a school or a classroom, found that dialogue was transformative. And so finally it dawned on me, this is not a couples therapy only. This is a transformational process. So we came to Dallas now 10 years ago, did an experiment, social experiment, and found that it was just phenomenally accepted. So we finally then said, okay, this needs to be now raised from just getting out as much as we can to launching a movement. We called it a global social movement, Safe Conversations Dialogue, a global social movement, and have launched that. And so along the way, you have to begin establishing some parameters. So we decided that we would who would we actually take it to? And going through a lot of thinking, we decided we just simply have to take it to the world. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means civilization. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means everybody.
I would like to talk. Okay, my weird but weirdly wonderful husband studies tipping point theory.
Yeah.
How many people study tipping point theory? And he said, Helen, if we can have 2.4 billion people using dialogue, the rest of global humanity will collapse and be dialogical.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on.
Well, that was a great relief to learn that you didn't have to reach 7.8 billion people, which was the planet, and that over the next 20 years, when this project has a timeline, 20 to 30, we'd have 9.8 billion people to reach. But if you could reach the tipping point, which is 25%, then you only have to reach 2.4 billion people in the next 30 years. So that became the target audience, and the goal was to teach dialogue to them and to teach it in such a way that they would not only hear about it, learn it, but integrate it and turn it into their life. And in a minute, after Helen makes her comment, I want to say why dialogue and what the significance of that is, because it's turns out it's an enormously significant thing.
Thank you for letting me talk right now, because it follows up on Women Moving Millions. Yes. So I have, one of many, I forget, we just ended up so many women doing women's philanthropy, and a woman that I barely remembered her name was Deborah Lindholm, called me one day, and she said, Helen, I just read a book on Mother Teresa. I was curious about why a woman would win the Nobel Peace Prize. Why did Mother Teresa win the Nobel Peace Prize? And what I learned in reading the book is it was because she devoted her life to countries that didn't have much money. There was a lot of poverty. No. And she tried to give people hope and help them get back up on their feet. And she said, basically, I've been doing I've been giving money in Southern California, where I live, as you know, but Southern California has plenty of money. Would you and Harville be willing to help me? I have begun to work with some people in Liberia, which is the place in Africa where the slaves were purchased before the United States became a democracy. But it was land. And but men in England who were thinking of maybe one day going to this new world, they bought plantations, and then they hired slaves to
I think they
plant the
didn't hire them,
seeds,
they
or they
captured
took
them.
and took them across. And
Mhm.
and she said, well, basically, when the slaves were returned, once the United States became its own country, these people sit in palava huts and talk all the time. They seem to love talking. And could we have you and Harville do a presentation for all the high school teachers and high school principals and a few students, and we would their buses, we can pick up everybody, they'll spend the night, and the next morning they'll show up in this room. And Harville says, I think it's about
150
people. So there were really a lot of people that she pulled together, and it was during COVID. And there were 2 metal screens on a stage where Harville and I could sit where we're sitting now and talk to the group. Someone who we trained here in Dallas flew over to Liberia to do Q&A and to pass out the manuals and things. But anyway, when we finished and explained that the value system of the culture is to be the best, and everyone ends up monologuing, but to have good relationships, you have to learn the dialogue process. Well, about 3 months after the meeting happened, and everyone seemed so happy that they came and heard our Zoom presentation, 3 months after that, we received a video, and it was of 2 men. One had a banjo, one had a guitar, and they went to a sound studio, and there was music and graphics. Safe Conversations is going to change the world. Safe Conversations, everyone needs to learn to do it. You're going to love it, and da-da-da. And these 2 men, a little in the sound studio, there were graphics like little butterflies. And then it began to spread around the continent of Africa. Wow. And it has been spreading. Yeah. And
it's in about 7 countries now.
Yeah. South Korea.
In Africa. So the launch in Dallas began to move across the world like that with thank God for Zoom, that you can do that kind of stuff. But I think if you've kind of turned it,
because in South Korea, in fact, 2 people have been Safe Conversation trained, and they have a college, and they're graduating students who want to take the Safe Conversation skills to Japan, China, and Taiwan.
Yeah. So it's got that energy of movement that people get into it, and they say, we have to take it here. So it's expanding that thing that couples often had was, we're doing this, maybe we should talk to our children, or maybe we use this with our parents. There's that same sort of thing now taken on sort of a global scale. But I think you've turned us loose, and we're just talking, and we can fill up all the space if you want to come in with a question or something. Otherwise, I'd like to talk about.
Well, I'm just excited. I keep listening to the 2 of you, and I'm like, how can I be also a vehicle to take you to the 2.4? And I was thinking, we're writing a book right now, bringing my model awareness integration into the organizational development and all the companies. And as you were talking, I'm like, I want to bring the safe dialogue into the essence of the dialogue that happens into corporations. And I know in your book, there is a section that talks about work. So, as you're talking, I'm like, I'm going to be also your ambassador to take yours everywhere to meet that 2.4 billion, so we can make it into 9 billion as we go.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What I was seeing in your book is that you shared about the concept of the disconnection that is there, which is, usually stems from the unconscious caretaking, traumatic experiences we've had from a childhood, and the cultural value system that sometimes holds us, in our ego, and I need to be right, and, me, and all of those, which creates the concept of the disconnection. And then yet there's this yearning for every single one of us as human being to be connected. To be together, to have all of those, and this kind of safe dialogue, safe conversation is opening the path for us to be able to do that and get connected again. And one of the things that I'd like us to talk about, because I think one of the main conversations is like the zero negativity. And I think and I love for you to tell us about the 4 components of the dialogue, and then kind of the reason I'm zooming into zero negativity has to do with this concept that seems to be the hardest part of the dialogue. So if you like to share how the two of you came with that 4 essence and the elements of it, and how you came from, come to the zero negativity. And I remember last time you were in the show, Helen, you shared a little bit about where you showed up with the zero, like, I got to give that up. And I remember listening to the two of you and the last book. And I took that on. I really took the zero negativity on. And it's a challenge, not in the dialogue itself, but in the essence of who we are, because you could always shift the dialogue and do it, but then if you're still holding resentment inside, it's going to leak in the next dialogue.
Right.
So I'm just putting, I'm putting everything that I want the two of you to talk about, and then please.
Well, let me just do a short one.
Okay.
The thing about zero negativity, it doesn't mean you suppress the things you're not happy about or you wish were different. So what we say is, rather than stomping your foot and going out of the room or yelling at someone or because of something they did or accusing them of ask for an appointment and make a request and tell that person, Harville, I know sometimes I'm not on time to a Zoom meeting, and rather than yelling at me when I'm not here.
So sometimes you're not on time to Zoom meeting, and so rather than yelling at you,
would you like I'm in another place, another room? Just give me a phone call, and I'll come.
Okay, you're
on time. Call, like, if you're worried I'm not going to make it, call me and I'll come right away.
So you're saying that knowing that you sometimes are late, that I could give you a call and say that the podcast is coming up. We're going to meet with Foojan and so forth. That would be.
So that's an example. That's an example. And by the way, I'm not usually late.
No,
I don't think
you're not.
But anyway, it's called converting a frustration into a request.
Yeah. The mechanism is that embedded in every frustration, every negative transaction, there is something you want which you're not getting, which is why you're frustrated or being negative. You want something, and most of us, I would say all of us, I don't know of an exception until you learn how to do it differently. When you get frustrated, you express the frustration, and you make it. It's Helen's fault. She's late, or whatever. And what that does then is trigger in Helen that this negative energy triggers her neurochemical system. So it goes into cortisol. She's now being flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. I am too, because I'm saying negative things. So now we're into this fight mode, and that's not a solution to the problem. But there is a solution to the problem. Identify the wish. And Helen, you do this so well. Identify what you want and tell me what you want instead of what you don't want or don't have. And
then maybe the other person says, well, I can't do exactly what you're wishing or wanting, but how about this? Or how about that?
Yeah.
And so compromise until both of you have a solution and you end up not yelling at each other.
Yeah. And usually the solution is offered. That's the grade is that if Helen said to me, well, just be more kind, I would be more kind according to my definition of kind. So she has to tell me kind would look like this, that you would call me on the phone and say, hi, honey, we have a podcast coming up and I'm really, really looking forward to doing this with you. And it's going to be in 5 minutes. Could you come over by then? That's kind. Okay, I can do that. But if she just said be kind, I would do it some other way and it wouldn't be kind for her. It would. So anyway, you have to do that. So that's the technology to the science of the zero negativity process. You don't, as Helen always says, and you do that here, you don't have to give up being frustrated. What you have to give up is expressing your frustration and instead replace it with what you want. And what you want should be described as a behavior, because I can see it, I can do it. But if it's an abstract concept, like be kind, I don't know how to do that, but I do know how to call you and in a kind tone of voice, soft, warm tone of voice. I know how to do all that. And then we get done what the frustration was trying to get done. Because all frustration is trying to get something done. Yes. But it doesn't. It compounds it and makes it more difficult to get it done.
Well, as I said, I took it into even deeper as I listened to Helen, which was attempting to have zero negativity even in my mind. Not like you said, not that it shows up, but also go to the dialogue to myself, right? So this isn't only the dialogue outside, but also as if like how to be with myself in a way. And I think what you're sharing, as I learned it from you, is more that when I go from this essence of the frustration and feeling like I'm a victim and brewing things inside, that the minute I show up as shifting this from a frustration place to what is it that I'm wishing for, what is the solution for me, and how I do that I feel empowered as a human being, that I'm not this victim place of, the world is doing something to me, but now I am empowered to share. And that by itself shifts from the negativity internally to positivity. And I don't hold that kind of a resentment anymore. Right. This is experience internally as I've gone through your model.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And what you just described is when you move from the emotion, which is being fed by a neurochemical called cortisol, you move from that into your prefrontal cortex to think, well, what do I want? Okay, what would that look like as a behavior? Oh, it would be pick up the phone and call me with a soft tone of voice. That's what I would like. You're now out of the emotional brain, which is back here, and into the cortical brain, which has no feelings. It only organizes and does things. It's how we became, how we stopped fighting our ancestors millions of years ago, is that we finally developed this thinking capacity. And when you move up there, you're out of it. And so you're not walking around full of cortisol anymore. Once you get it, you'd now start walking around with endorphins, and which is the feel-good chemical. Mm-hmm. And that we can, as I love your word empowered, we have the power to create the quality of interaction we want with another human being. But if we stay in the victim position, we will simply compound the problem. If we move into the empowered position, then we have what we all want, which is to be connected.
And it's interesting because when I've worked, with your dialogue method with my clients, a lot of couples, and this is what's funny. Because sometimes it's like, okay, well, what do you want? I don't know. I haven't thought about it, because the way they've trained their brain is that they stay in brewing the negativity and never look at, what do I want? And it's like, I don't know. And then it's like, well, if you don't know, how do you expect your partner to know what you want when you don't even know what you want? So it takes the whole concept of shifting their focus into this positive realm, and moving them forward, which then comes to the dialogue.
Yes. And just to follow through on that, people do, and I have, and people do really think that I don't know what I want, but you should know. You live with me. You should know what I want. So I need to come up with that. And that's the biggest problem of all, because it assumes I live in your mind. And I don't live in your mind. I can't live in your mind. I can only get into your mind when we have an exchange of words that give me meaning about what's going on in your mind. And then you have to make it very concrete, like do these 3 things, or I still won't know how to respond to you. So we don't, and no human beings on the planet live in spaces where they know what the other person needs and wants. And so that's the whole problem. That's the whole challenge of putting it into behavioral specific concrete language, even maybe with a picture. It would look like this, phone by so the brain now, okay, now that it's a behavior described in these concrete terms, the possibility of me doing it is about 90% probably. Otherwise, it's probably 10%.
And with you mentioning the brain, let me just add, someone who knew people at the Mayo Clinic knew about our dialogue work, and they took the dialogue process to the Mayo Clinic and to analyze, is this a healthier way for people to talk? And the response was yes, 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 yes. And basically, they said that if a person is frustrated and reacting to life from this part of the brain, the lower part, and if especially if they're upset or angry or frustrated, throughout the day they're releasing neurochemicals from down here, adrenaline and cortisol and toxic neurochemicals that just start flowing through your bloodstream. And when you go to sleep at night, you don't sleep very long, and you get sick more, according to Mayo Clinic, and you die younger than a person who uses the neocortex. And in the left brain, you can't dialogue without choosing to go to the neocortex, the upper brain. Left brain hemisphere, I do the sentence sims with Harville, and the right brain hemisphere also is about making sure I'm mirroring Harville back. And between the two is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex that releases dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And that healthy neurochemicals go through your bloodstream, and you sleep better, and you're a happier person. So we love telling people all of your relationships will be better, but you will feel better also, just like you seem to, because I can tell you use it and your face looks like you've experienced the neurochemicals that make you feel good and enjoy a day.
Absolutely. It's so much fun to have your own internal chemicals, give you joy.
Yeah.
And, you have to create the mechanism for that to happen. Let me show this to everybody, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything, by Dr. Harville Hendrix and Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt. So everyone, please get this book. It's amazing. It will shift your life and relationships.
Yeah. So let me just make a comment about the how to talk with anybody about anything about we've been talking about dialogue. So the comment I want to make is that it was a discovery long ago that talking was what was the problem, not the problem that they brought, couples would bring to us. It was how they talk. And finally, it just got clearer and clearer to me. Talking is the most dangerous thing human beings do, because talking is the primary medium of interacting, and the quality of the talking is what determines the response of the other person. So we got really interested in that and moved kind of out of, clinical applications to why is this so important to change the way people talk? And then it got clear to us that for probably, and maybe, I don't know how it could be any different, ever since human beings talked, they've talked monologically. And what that means is one person talks and everybody else is supposed to listen. And it's a vertical way of relating. I know something you should know, and I'm telling you, and you need to listen to obey or to do it right. There was never, and what that means is there was never into this listening to understand. There was only listening to be obedient or to learn. And so it's one person talking and then another person talking who might have a different point of view to the one here. So there'd be parallel monologues, and that this is the human situation with talking. And so we got into the research on this and discovered that the thing that makes dialogue different from monologue is that it is balanced with listening. Balance with listening. Now, this is one of the most important things that we're going to say in this meeting with you, Foojan. Listening has never been recommended or valued in the human scene. When we do research on talking, enormous amount of research, reams of research on how to talk, how to use your voice, blah, 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 blah. When you do research on listening, barely any research at all. A little bit, like Helen was talking about, some universities have gotten interested in communication and have discovered that if people say back what they heard, blah, blah, blah. But then they also found this out. This is really fascinating. The neurophysiological structure of our ears, of the receptor where the words go, is so unformed that we only get 30% accurately what we hear. In other words, listening is limited to 30%. Hearing is just, acoustical sound waves. Listening is they go inside and are accurately represented by the prefrontal cortex so that you're getting what's in this other person's mind. We get 70% of it wrong on a good day. And on a bad day, we get it all wrong because it gets in that there's too much static. If I'm upset, there's too much static to hear anything accurately. So I'm going to start reacting out of a total lack of knowledge about what you said or total distortion of what you said. And that got really clear and clear to us, which is what led to this whole this book, is that we have to get clear and help people understand it's not really our fault that we have such a hard time listening. Somehow over time, over evolutionary time, when the brain and all that was developing, the ear did not develop to match the vocal cords. The vocal cords really developed, but the ear didn't. And we don't know. There's no research to do that. So we can imagine that the ear wasn't as much needed. You didn't much need the ear as you needed your mouth, because you could make noise, and that would be let people know you were around and not to bother you. And so the sounds, and all animals have their sounds, and human beings had their sounds, but the ear got undeveloped because it only needed to know is that what I'm hearing, dangerous or safe. So it didn't develop the refinement that it needed to convert those acoustical sound waves into the precision of language that had complex meanings. But here's the exciting thing about this. We found that when people practice dialogue, they practice listening, And they have to say, let me see if I got that. If I did, you said A, B, C, D, E, and F. When they do that, and the partner gives feedback and says, well, you got A, B, C, and D, but not F right. So well, would you send that again? And so they send that again. So you mirror it back now. So if I got it now, and the practice of deliberately moving from hearing to listening changes the sensitivity of the ear. And we found that really good listeners emerge out of the regular practice of mirroring back what you heard. So that we encourage that when you get this information that we're talking about right now, say to people, let me see if I'm getting what you're saying. And then say back to them. You can say it to a stranger. You can say it to the waiter in the restaurant. So let me see, your special for the evening is, the shrimp cooked this way. I don't have to do that. They just said what it was, and I like it or don't like it. But why not use it as an opportunity to train your ear to accurate listening? And we can say this, that when you get to the point that you listen so well that other people experience being listened to, that's magic. Because what we need is to be seen, heard, and valued. That's all human beings really need to thrive and enjoy and live a gracious life. And if they're not seen, heard, and valued, they're going to do something. They're going to get angry or they're going to get depressed. And then all the problems are going to arise out of anger and depression. And that's going to require a lot of talking. It requires therapy. It requires all kinds of things. But if we could get the ear trained so that we got accurate listening, so that we would know to be precise in our response, both mirroring it back, the words, and doing a behavior that we could get clear. Beautiful. So much therapy would not even have to be done, because this space between would cease to be a place of static and become a place of synchrony between the two languages. And this is why we decided to launch this global social movement. Think about that. If we could get people all over the world to simply listen, well, speak responsibly, and speak up and say what you think and want, but do that without judgment and without criticism. Just say, I think and I feel and I want, instead of you feel, you think, and blah, blah, blah. The word you triggers the brain into defenses. So always say I. But if we could just change a little tiny bit to speak from the I and to listen and mirror back accurately and accept what we hear, because it's always going to be different from what you thought. My and Helen's brains, we've been together we've known each other for 50 years. We don't have the same brain. You can't even have the same brain. Nature didn't set it up so that you could ever have the same brain. So give it up. You're not going to get it. You're going to have to cross this bridge, the between. We call it the space between. You got to cross that. And the use of words is the passage. And you can get the use of words down and practice it with precision, 90% of the human problem would be over, because what we're mainly doing is fussing at you because of how you talk to me.
Exactly. I want to give also Helen the opportunity. Is there anything we haven't said as we're coming to an end of our show that you want to share with us based on your work together? I know that in your book you also share about the dynamic of what's happening in the world, about the duality, the completely the political realm, and the social media, which allows people to just kind of like vomit verbally whatever they want and vomit emotionally whatever they want without any listener. They're just blah 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 saying it, and then creating so much rage and anger to the world. It is so necessary to have your work be global, not only to balance this, but also tilt it to the positive for all of us to kind of live lovingly with each other on this planet Earth. Go ahead.
Well, I feel like we said most everything, but to add something, this has to do with a personal relationship. And there are two qualities that can impact them negatively that may not be, in a work context or when you're in a whole big room, but it has to do with the look in your eye and your tone of voice. That that sometimes this is more of a personal. If this is someone you live with at home, if you wish as someone's look in their eye you don't like it, it looks like they're gonna shoot you, even though they aren't saying that they're gonna shoot you, but they look that way. You can go LL, representing loving look, or their voice tone. If their voice tone is making you feel uncomfortable, VT, could you say that a little bit differently? And there are ways you can just gently shape another person, especially in home life, to be more sensitive to what it feels like living with you at home.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a little bit before we get off this, that we want to be you and us talked about work world, and that you have something for corporations. This book, when we said we have to change civilization, so blah blah blah, which means that we found that in companies who use it and become relational companies, the revenue stream goes up. We found that in schools where you use dialogue in the classroom, the grade level of the students goes up, which is very interesting. And we found that in religious organizations, which use it, the polarity of God, my God is better than your God, goes away, because the whole point of a religion is to connect, and so people experience connecting, and can loosen up some rigid theologies. So it's a human need, a human process, can be used across all ecosystems. And we think, actually, I think we think this, Helen and I both think this, that it's something new is coming into the world, not just our book and not just what we're talking about, but something new at a very collective level. We would say in the collective unconscious, out of that collective unconscious, there's now something that's coming into collective consciousness about connecting, and that connecting is our nature, and that somehow we as a species are wanting to be what we are. We've been separated so long, in polarization so long, that somehow in our evolutionary journey toward being who we are, we're going to move from this individualistic focus into a relational civilization. And then we'll study war no more. Life will be very different when we can move into that connecting and safe space. That's what we're hoping the book will contribute to. And what we thank you so much for having us on to visit with you, which is always a pleasure. And that you want to become a part of this, that is really honoring. And we say, take it and go with it, because we want it, because this is the way it gets spread.
Yes, actually, Dr. Daniel Siegel forwarded your book, and he was on my show last week, and we talked about collective consciousness with him, because obviously he works a lot with that.
Dan Siegel, he is the one that once upon a time he said, left brain hemisphere, right brain hemisphere, or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, where you move beyond predication. I called him, I said, Dan, that's stupid. The upper brain talks. Move beyond predication, what do you mean? And he said, well, that's where you wonder about somebody.
Wonder.
And I've actually written a book on wonder. But anyway, that is the healthiest part of the brain for a person to be in. And then in our dialogue sentence stems, one of the phrases that the other person loves to hear, now that I've mirrored you back correctly, I say, did I get that? And then if Harville says yes, I'd say, is there more about that?
Mm-hmm.
And the other person thinks, you got time to listen to me? And it's wonderful for relationships. So
curiosity.
Dan is the expert at brain health and relationship health.
We're so honored that they endorse the book.
Yes, he's an amazing. One thing that Dr. Hunt, you said, and I've experienced it a lot, which is the same sentence I can tell my husband, and if at that moment I'm in my, kind of like a bossy place, and it shows up, like you said, the look in my eyes and the way it comes a little bit from up to bottom, and you could see his body move toward me as if like, like what just happened? And watching that and listening to myself, I immediately shift my note and the way that I say it, exactly the same sentence, and it changes. You're so accurate how just shifting that way of being also changes, even if the sentences are appropriate, even if the sentence is all empathic and loving. But if the stance is different and it shows up from your body language, that you could see the impact on the other person. And how to and to shift that also, it seems like you got to shift something internally and to be so aware of what's going inside of you because of the impact that you have. One thing that I really want our listeners and viewers to get, because sometimes it's like, well, these type of dialogue needs both people to be trained and for both of them to do. But basically what you were also sharing is if we do it ourselves, if we begin listening, if we begin shifting, if we begin talking, that we change the world around us in that dialogue, regardless of whether they were trained or not, is as if, subconsciously we're training them, because if we keep doing what we do, that dialogue, that space in between that you said shifts automatically. Hopefully, the person who's in front of me also wonders and gets excited about this, and they'll take it on because they see that it works. But we don't have to wait until our mate, our friends, our coworkers, everyone around us learns this to do it with us. But we could take this on and take it to the world.
And what I'm loving? Yes, this is a closing statement. What you have just said is what Harville said at the beginning. Listening. And the one thing that neither of us said, but both of us had read Paul Tillich when we were dating, and we both loved Paul Tillich, who said, listening is the first act of love. Just listen. And that's where you get to rest and just let them have their position, and then then you can reach a compromise, or for a while your way, or a while my way, or
and sometimes the whole issue goes away. You don't have to compromise or make decisions. Just like not an issue anymore.
Just listening.
Where can people find you?
Well, our website, harvillandhelen.com, is where they can find us personally. And quantumconnections.com is where they can find the global social movement, which is which is staffed with people who are doing all the work of getting this out into the world.
Yeah,
so
if you'd like to get trained to teach other people dialogue. And we have Connecting at Work. And I think a program that corporations can purchase, connecting at houses of worship. So there are things you can purchase that brings the idea of dialogue into a business.
And I think also, as you're coming, that there are you don't have to have credentials like if you were a therapist. You'd have to come with a credential. You're already a therapist. We'll just we'll train you in Imago. Anybody who's interested in the whole project of safety and a healthy world, and who can talk and share, can go through the training process.
Beautiful.
And even go through it at 2 or 3 levels. And one is the level of being credentialed to teach it, and then to teach people to teach it. So, because we want as many people as possible to start practicing it and distributing it, because we got 2.4 billion people to go before we actually can shift civilization.
I don't have a very boring life living with this guy.
Love it. I love it.
Well, what was exciting was to learn that if you get 25%, the shift occurs, and then 50% of the population will sort of spontaneously start doing it.
Yes.
And 25% will be left over, and they'll give you trouble for a while because they don't quite go. But that's fine, because they then help you do it better.
Yeah. And by then you'll go to the next level, which you want to teach us. So we'll never be bored with this. We'll just keep the next level.
Exactly.
It was a joy to have the two of you here again. And thank you. Always creating an opportunity for me to learn from you and grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's so great to see you again and to have another fun conversation with you.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations on your work.
Oh, thank you. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you, especially through Safe Conversation Dialogue. Bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.